Yeah.
He is the internet sensation of not only IIT-TMO, of this tourism world. The is a very popular person, particularly for temples and all. And sir will be discussing Hinduism with you people. Sir, this screen is visible, you are audible, and the session is all yours. You may please start, sir.
Yeah, ma'am. Namaste to everybody. A warm welcome. I hope my voice is clear, right, ma'am?
Yes, sir, the voice is absolutely clear.
Okay.
So just one announcement, if you do not mind, in between. Students, I ask you to join with your original names. What have you people done here? 1, 1, 2, 3, whatever it is. Please understand, you have to join with your original name, or within few seconds, we'll be like, we'll do something so as you are out of the session, please. Please to stay in the session, ensure that you're enrolling with your original names. Thank you so much, students. Sorry, sir, for interruption. You may please continue.
Yeah. Namaste everybody. Namaste all. I'm Ramakrishna, and I'm here with IIT-TM since 2012. And my area of interest is history, Indian culture, heritage, temples. So I work on all these topics. And especially when I say Indian culture, heritage, temples, okay, it intrigues me a lot, and I would love to talk about them for hours together. I'm from Hyderabad. I'm a Telugu from Telangana. So my mother tongue is Telugu, and presently stationed in Gwalior. Right. So okay, today's topic will be Hinduism, a topic which is of my interest, and which also has got a lot of myths in it, which are to be discussed and made clear to the listeners, or you all, the participants today, they are there in the lecture. One announcement is this, when I start my lecture, I'll keep my video off, and I would also request everybody to keep your videos off. Why? Because when videos are on, the bandwidth that will be taken will be high, and that is the reason there will be a disturbance in the okay, delivery of the lecture, especially okay, broadcasting of the lecture. So to avoid all this, please keep your videos off, because you understand, when I'm sharing the screen, what is visible to is my screen or either my video. So you don't need me or my you don't need to see me for a long time, okay, isn't it? And we vice versa do not okay, see much like how you are okay, being visible. So please, it's a kind request, please keep your video off to okay, have a hassle-free broadcast, right? And I'll also do the same. So what we'll be focusing is, we'll be focusing for next 40 minutes or 45 minutes about the lecture. I'll be talking, and whenever, wherever, it's not that you have to type your questions in the last. Due course of lecture, wherever you find a problem, you have a question, you have a doubt to ask, you happily post it in the chat box, okay? And another kind request, because these are the etiquettes of attending online lecture. So whenever okay, you are attending the lecture, make sure you are not typing unnecessary unless until it is emergency. Why? Because if somebody has asked a question because of unnecessary messages, the question will be going up, okay, it will not be visible, and then unnecessary messages will be visible, so that we'll be missing out important questions to answer. So unless until it is emergency, please do not type anything in the chat box, okay? And if it is a question, happily, any question, you need not worry about it is a bigger question, smaller question, serious question, or question is a question, whatever it is, right? So two things, keep your video off and ask question wherever you have a problem, and in the last 5 to 10 minutes I'll spend in answering your questions, right? So you are Ramakrishna, okay, I am Ramakrishna, and you're all with me for next 40-45 minutes. And you can see, I'll just yeah, make it a full screen right now. So I am there on different social media sites. One is on Facebook with the name Lost Temples. On Insta, I am there with the tourism teacher. And on Twitter, I am with Artist Rama. So you can follow me there for more information about temples and Hinduism related things. Yeah, why am I saying so? Because that is the way, that is the area where I work. That is the reason. Otherwise, it has got no special connotation, right? So today's topic is Vaidika Dharma, or the Hinduism, or the Sanatana Dharma also, which people are much aware. Before starting the lecture, let me make you listen. Like during this lecture, the course of lecture, you will come across few slokas also. Some slokas, their audio is much high, so you will not have a problem. In between, there are one or two slokas whose audio is very less, decibels are less, and there I request you to listen very carefully to the slokas. But then I will not move much fast wherever I am discussing shlokas. I will focus and I will give you enough time to understand them, right? Now, so like let us listen to this Rudri part, okay, before starting the lecture. Yeah, that was a Rudri part. Okay, and why did I take Rudri part? Because there are two things I always take whenever I deal such lectures. One is the first shloka of Rig Veda, which is dedication to the god Agni, the first and foremost god on this earth, and then the Rudra. Why Rudra? Okay, we will come to know as we proceed okay, ahead in the slides, right? Now, whenever I start this lecture, I come up, okay, I end up in this, okay, a word called ism. Whenever somebody asks me, sir, what is this ism? I always say it is an oxymoron. Why is it an oxymoron? Why? Because, see, this ism is something that has started somewhere around 1800s. And where did it start? It started in US, United States of America, while it's okay, a war for independence was going on, and there they have come across a few. For example, see, they came across okay, this apartheid called as caste. Then there was this thing called race, right? Because the white were feeling that they were superior over the black. And what did they call? So wherever they have come across some discrimination kind of caste, some discrimination kind of race, or anything else, so to this they have added okay, a suffix called as ism. And that is where it starts. In the sense, wherever you are coming up with this ism, you are seeing it with a negative perspective. You are seeing it with a negative perspective. You just understand that. So adding that ism suffix to the race, it becomes a racism. What does it become? Racism. Caste, casteism. Understanding? In the sense, the word ism itself, or its origin itself, is derogatory, in the sense abusive. And since you are talking about something in not a positive manner, in a negative manner. In the sense, whenever, see, race is a negative word and you have used the suffix ism, racism. In the sense, what did it become? A negative noun. Understanding? And then whenever you are using this caste and you have added ism, then it is again becoming negative, a derogatory, abusive suffix that was there. And later on, when Britishers have colonized India, okay, they did the same with Indian philosophies. What are they? The philosophies like Buddha, okay, the philosophy of Buddha, they added ism to it and they made it Buddhism. Why? Because anything other than their practice, they started calling it as, or they started thinking that it is negative, or it is orthodox, or they thought it is derogatory, and that is the reason they started using this, okay, word ism to it. Like Buddhism, okay, again is a derogatory word. Jainism again is derogatory. A same way they also have used ism to Hindu, and which is also a derogatory word. Where did it start? It all started during the War of Independence in America, and for which they always have used this ism for negative explanations. But then the same ism you do not find being used in places like, for example, see, you do not call it as Christianism rather you call it as Christianity. Why? Because they are very much aware that ism is something which is negative or derogatory. You do not call it Islamism, okay? Rather you simply call it Islam, right? The same, you do not call it as Jewishism, isn't it? But then see, they happily have called it Judaism, understanding, and then because they used to feel it derogatory. So the first thing I want to make it clear to you all, ism is an oxymoron which should not be used. Why? Because its origin itself lies in negative aspect, its usage itself is derogatory, because it has always been used something that was used in the context of abuse, isn't it? And do you think ism adding to, okay, a geographical terminology Hindu and making it Hinduism is correct? I don't think so. And this is where, and I feel whatever is possible, how much ever is possible, there should be a great discussion about adding this oxymoron suffix ism to Hindu, ism to Buddhism, or Buddhist philosophy, ism to Jaina philosophy, isn't it? And then it is same way with Sikhism also, isn't it? Sikh, isn't it? And they have added all Indian philosophies that have originated here, they have added ism, because they felt that it is something very orthodoxy concept other than, which is okay, not of their origin. Clear with this? This is where I wanted to make this simple point before getting into the discussion. What is that? Ism, okay, a oxymoron terminology which should not be used. But then what has happened? Maybe because regularly it has been used, okay, by everybody, and a lot of literature is there, lot of print, electronic, every media uses, and if you do not use, and that is the reason what has happened is the nationalists recently they have started using two words much for Hinduism. One is Sanatana Dharma and the other one is Vaidika Dharma. Why are they using Vaidika Dharma or Sanatana Dharma? Okay, that we will be seeing in the later slide. Okay, right now. Okay, coming to the word, what is Sanatana Dharma? See, the context of Sanatana Dharma itself is mentioned in Atharva Veda. Okay, and that is the reason the philosophy that originates from Veda is called as Vaidika, isn't it? What is it? It is a dharma. And see, whenever I am quoting dharma, okay, you have to understand this word. Dharma means not a religion. Understanding? Dharma means not religion. For example, see, I owe my life to my father, isn't it? In the sense, I have my duty towards father and mother, isn't it? I have to serve my duty towards my family, or I have a duty or something that is to be done towards my nation, isn't it? That duty that is to be served towards family, towards the nature, is called as dharma. Dharma means duty that is to be rightfully done. Kaise? Dekho, wrongfully, not rightfully. Understanding? That is to be rightfully done, okay, for somebody. That is what is dharma. And this is what Atharva Veda says. Sanatanam yenam ahrut adyasyat punarnava. It means Sanatan is called which is innovative. Dekho, Sanatan is which is innovative, isn't it? And Sanatan means which keeps renewing itself every day. Renewal. Understanding? In the sense, see, something gets depleted. In the sense, aapke, okay, in your vehicle, petrol is okay, finished. What do? You renew it again. In the sense, you fill it again. So, Sanatana Dharma is same. That keeps innovating from time to time. That keeps renewing itself from time to time, even today. And that is what Atharva Veda says. Isn't? We do not pick up the words, okay, right from the blue, and we do not okay, attribute it to Hinduism. It's not that way. They are mentioned somewhere, and rightfully people have picked up, okay, such words, right? Okay, and then that innovates itself from time to time, which is rightfully an act to be done by us, is called Sanatana Dharma, right? Going ahead, isn't it? And then the word dharma, I said you, right? Rightful, or the duty, isn't the rightful duty that is to be done, isn't it? Its mention is there in Bhagavata Purana, isn't one of the most famous, okay, Vaishnava texts. Clear? So by this you have to understand where do we get this word Sanatana Dharma, right? From Atharva Veda and Bhagavata Purana. Or if it is Vaidika Dharma, it is very easy. Okay, the philosophy, the context, and the practices of Hindus Okay, it originates from the Vedas, and that is the reason it is called as Vaidika. Clear? Next, coming to Rig Veda. Okay, Rig Veda dates back to 1500 BCE, before Common Era or before Christ. But then let me make one thing very clear here. It's not 1500. 1500 is a very false date that has been given, a wrong attribution. Then what should be the date actually if it is not 1500? That we will be discussing when I start history classes for you. At least not less than 3000 to 4000 years old is Rig Veda. And what is Rig Veda? Rig Veda is the oldest text in the world. The oldest text in the world is what? Rig Veda. दुनिया में सबसे पुराना किताब कौन सा है, बुक कौन सा है, पुस्तक कौन सा है? ऋग्वेदा है, isn't it? And Rigveda, if I am saying it, at least goes back not less than 3000 years. And see, the Sanskrit that is used in Rigveda is most advanced level of Sanskrit. In the sense, imagine then how old must be the language Sanskrit. Isn't it? When somebody is writing a book, okay, using Sanskrit like Rigveda, so they have used advanced language. In a sense, suddenly the language do not become advanced overnight. Does it become? No, it doesn't. It takes generations together to make it, to perfect itself, isn't it? It has to have words. It has to have syllables. It has to have consonants, vowels. Then it has to have a terminology, isn't it? And then you have to have sentences, then grammar, construction, whatnot. It takes hundreds and thousands of years. By then, if I say 1000, 3000 years, I will explain how it is 3000 years when we talk it on discuss in history classes. But then you have to understand. So now simply by this itself, we can simply in a blind manner we can say at least Sanskrit is not less than 4000 years old. It must be more than that. But then whatever. So here, why am I taking Rigveda? Rigveda is the oldest text. This is where everything rises from, isn't it? This is where the Vaidika Dharma starts, isn't it? And from this Rigveda, the oldest text in the world, I have a first shloka, which is my favorite shloka, a beautiful shloka, which is dedicated to God Agni. And let us listen to the shloka, the first shloka of Rigveda, which is dedicated to Agni. Please. Harihi Om Agnimile Purohitam Yajnasya Deva Vridvijam Hotaram Ratnadhatamam. Beautiful. So now what is he saying? He is saying, Agni, you are the God and I pay my respect to you. That is what he is saying. Clear? In a sense, Agni is mentioned as the first God, or the first God on this earth, and the first stanza or first shloka of Rigveda says this, isn't it? But then why are we talking about Agni? Because this is where everything starts. How does it start? I will say you later on. See, Agni, coming to this, I will continue in this slide and I'll explain how it is relevant. See, you're all familiar with this shloka, Om Bhurbhuva Swaha Tatsavitur Varenyam, right? What is this shloka? This shloka, if I remember, everybody of you are familiar, and I think you all call it as Gayatri Mantra, right? Om Bhurbhuva Swaha Gayatri Mantra. Now, the discussion of Gayatri Mantra. What is Gayatri Mantra? Is it dedicated to Gayatri goddess? Or what is it? That we have to understand. This is where everything lies. This is where everything starts. The Hinduism, the Vaidika Dharma starts from. And again, this Gayatri Mantra that you are all familiar with is from Rigveda, the third mandala. Now, let us listen to the shloka first, and I will give a good explanation of what actually this Gayatri Mantra is. So, see here, in the initial words of this mantra, we come across three words. One is Bhur. Okay. The other one is Bhuva. And the next one is Swaha. Okay. Swaha, or generally while pronouncing, you call it as Swaha. And what is this mantra actually? Okay. Do you really think that this mantra is dedicated to, okay, the goddess Gayatri? No, it is not. This is what we have to understand. For what, for whom is it dedicated then? Okay, this Gayatri mantra is the mantra for Aditya. And who is Aditya? Aditya is sun god. In the sense, this is the mantra of Surya. Understanding? And many people, even today, many practicing Hindus even today think that Gayatri mantra is dedicated to, or is the mantra of goddess Gayatri. It is not. Then who is Gayatri here? See, the Rig Veda is a poetry book. In the sense, they are written in the form of songs, right? Beautifully written. Poetry is used and they are written, right? And see, this poetry, or generally, see, poetry is not correct word, but actually the prosody it is called as. In the sense, the style that is used in writing poetry is called as prosody, or you simply call it as chandas. Isn't it? You need not worry about the terminology that I am using. We will talk about them later on, but then understand. So there is this chandas while writing the Sanskrit poetry. So in this chandas, Sanskrit poetry, there are 7 meters while writing the Sanskrit poetry. For example, the shlokas that are written. So are written in one of the 7 meters. What are those meters? Okay, there is a meter called as Gayatri meter. Okay, there is a meter called as Anushtup meter. There is also meter called as, okay, Trushtup. Okay, there is also meter called as Jagati. Then there is also meter called as Pankti. So like this, there are 7 meters. In out of these 7 meters, 1 meter that is used to, one meter style that is used to write this sloka was Gayatri, and that is the reason, because it is written in Gayatri style, you call it as Gayatri mantra, but not it is dedicated to Gayatri goddess. Clear with this? Then who is it dedicated to? It is dedicated to sun god. It is dedicated to sun god. Clear? Now, so now what is this Bhur Bhuva Swaha? Okay, Bhur means Bhumi, the earth, isn't it? And Bhuva means the atmosphere, isn't it? And Swa means the sky, or simply Bhumi, okay, Akasha, and then okay, this is Swarga. Clear? Bhumi, atmosphere, and okay, the earth, atmosphere, and the sky. Now, what reference here? Bhur Bhuva Swaha. It simply means on earth. Okay. The sun is in the form of Agni. See, again, I am coming to the reference of Agni here, isn't it? The first shloka of Rig Veda. It is saying, what is the reference? The reference is Agni. On earth, sun is in the form of Agni. And in atmosphere, sun is in the form of thunder, Bijli. Clear? And in the sky, he is in the form of sun himself, proper sun. In the sense, okay, Aditya has got 3 forms. What are they? Agni, okay, thunder, Vajra. You call it as thunder means Vajra. Okay, Agni, Vajra, and Surya. These are the 3 forms. So thunder, whenever there is rain, okay, you see thunder, and whenever there is a sunrise or okay, whatever it is, sun is there forever in the sky. But then on earth, he is in the form of Agni. All the work that is to be done with the help of sun or thunder is done with the help of Agni on the earth. That is the reason this beautiful shloka, powerful shloka, is dedicated to sun god. Why? See, now when I was talking about Agni, Agni is very important on this earth. The same way sun, who is in the form of sun in the sky, is very important. Why? When there is no sun, there is no light, or there is no Agni on the earth. When there is no Agni on the earth, there is no life on the earth. In the sense, all life is related to sun. And that is the reason sun in the form of Agni is regarded as the first god on this earth, and is also praised by Rig Veda, and it's the first shloka. Understanding? And the picture that you are seeing here is the sun god, Aditya. So on 2 sides, see, the iconography also of, the sun god is wonderful. I will tell you how it is. So whenever you are starting this Gayatri mantra, or okay, the mantra of Aditya, okay, Om Buh, Om Bhuva, Om Suva, Om Aha, Om Jana, Om Tapa, Om Satyam. And so there are 7 words that you use, and then you start Om Bhur Bhuva Swaha. Understanding? And what are those 7? Those 7 are 7 meters that are there in the chandas, and those 7 are 7 colors that rise when the sunlight is refracted through the clouds. Isn't it? What is it? Vibgyor, violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red. And that is the reason wherever you see sun god, okay, he has a chariot, isn't it? And what is the chariot? Chariot is run by his okay, charioteer Radhasaradi, who is okay, Aruna. And then he has 2 wives. One is Usha and the other one is Nisha. Who is Usha? The day. And who is Nisha? The night. See how logical it is. A sun god has got 2 wives, who is day and who is night, and he has a charioteer, and his horse, okay, his ratha is carried on by 7 horses. How many? 7 horses. And what does the 7 horses represent? 7 horses represent 7 meters of chandas, or the 7 colors, okay, that arise when sunlight is refracted. Isn't it? When are we talking about this concept, refraction? Isn't a prism? At least not less than 3000 4000 years old concept it is. Understanding? And when you next time listen to the Gayatri mantra, it is the meter that is written, but not actually it is dedicated to Gayatri Devi, rather it is dedicated to the sun god. Okay, it is the shloka from Rig Veda. Going ahead, so here you see, by seeing the text you need not worry at all. Okay, you have got nothing to do with this text. I will say what it is. So there is this Brahmana, okay, which is called as Shatapatha Brahmana. You need not worry about name again. I will have a concept to explain here, and that is the reason I have come. So in Shatapatha Brahmana, what it says is, it says, okay, it talks, okay, Agni, or generally Vedas say that Agni is the god, first god. And Shatapatha Brahmana says simply that, okay, the other names of Agni is Bhava. What is it? Bhava. And there is a lot of relationship between the word Agni and Bhava. And the same Shatapatha Brahmana also says Bhava is nothing but it is the name of Rudra. In the sense, now shall we link it? Rudra is none but Bhava, and Bhava is none but Agni. In the sense, at the end of the day, who is Agni? Agni is none but Rudra. Simple. Isn't it? Now you see, sun is in 3 forms. What are they? He is in the form of sun in the sky, he is in the form of thunder in the atmosphere, and he is in the form of, okay, Agni on the earth. 3 forms. The same way, if Agni is Bhava, Bhava is Rudra, Rudra is Agni, then Rudra will also have 3 forms, right? And that is the reason Rudra is called as Trayambaka. See how beautiful it is. What is he called? He is called as Trayambaka. And what is Trayambaka? The one who has 3 mothers. In simple form, the one who is present in 3 forms. Isn't it? But then when I say Agni, Agni is Bhava, Bhava is Rudra, Rudra is who? Shiva. Understanding? In the sense, Shiva is also in the form of 3. Isn't it? Who are they? He is in the form of sun in the sky, he is in the form of thunder in the atmosphere, and he is in the form of Agni on the earth, fire on the earth. Now see, Dekho, you understand. The more you dwell into the Vedic Dharma, you will understand one thing. Everything ends in sun. Sun is the core concept. From there rises everything. See, from sun, how did we come up and ended in Rudra? And who is Rudra? Rudra is none other than sun, again, the energy. And who is he called? He is called Trayambaka. And the same triangle, what is the Trayambaka? Again, the Rig Veda says, Om Trayambakam Yajamahe. Isn't it? What is it? Mahamrutyunjaya Mantram. The one who cessates, the one who ceases the death to human beings. Who is he? Okay, Trayambaka. Who is he? The Rudra. Who is he? The Shiva. Who is he? The Bhava. Who is he? The Agni. Trayambakam Yajamahe. Understanding? Isn't it? Now this aside. Now listen one thing very carefully. The same Shatapatha Brahmana writes this way. See, fact. It says, see, sun in contact with earth produces winds. Hota ya nahi? Whenever there is summer, what happens? Winds will be blowing. Why do they blow? Because when the earth heats, the wind becomes light. It goes, it gets into the sky, and then the cooler wind flows in. Isn't it? You have studied in your school days. isn't it? And this which accumulates clouds in turn, producing lightning and storms, isn't it? And that lightning and storms creates, okay, terrifying sounds, etc. And that is the reason we are afraid. And that is the reason we worship. Whom do we worship? We worship Rudra, so that such terrifying things do not happen. The concept of heat, winds, clouds, thunder, rain, they are all very discussed in the Rig Veda and the Brahmanas. Clear? Now, the mantra which is dedicated to, okay, the Rudra, who is the three-mothered one, who is present in the forms of, in three forms, okay, is the Mahamrityunjaya mantra. Let us listen to the mantra.
Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityormukshiyamamritat.
Yeah, beautiful Mrityunjaya mantra, that is, isn't it? And why did I take that mantra is because, okay, it states what is that Triambakam, and who is the Triambaka? The Rudra is the Triambaka. The Rudra is the Shiva. The Shiva is the Bhava. Bhava is the Agni. Agni is Aditya. Agni is Surya. Agni is the sun. That is where everything starts. Now, the same concept again. See, what is this Om? Okay, right? And what is the meaning of this Om? You see, for example, see, this is one part, this is another part, this is another part, and then you have 5 elements in it. 5 elements put together, it makes Om. Is it, what is it called as? You call it as Om, but then many practicing Hindus are not familiar that this, okay, the sound is Om, but then what is the name of this Om? Nobody knows. Understanding? Anybody from you know that what is the name of this Om? There should be a name for it, right? Why? Because you may be saying it is, sir, it is called as Om. Om is the sound. That is the, okay, combination of 3 syllables. What is that? A, U, and isn't it? The sound of eternity. The sound, okay, that is generated in the oblivion. What is that? Om. But then there should be, okay, name for it, right? For that sound, there is a name. What is that? The name of Om is Udgita. Please remember, many practicing Hindus do not know what Om is called. They simply think that Om is the name of the Om. No, Om has got a name. What is it? It is Udgita. Understanding? Udgita is the name of the word. And where do you find this word Udgita? You find this word Udgita in Chandogya Upanishad. Kaha milta hai hame ye reference? Chandogya Upanishad mein milta hai. And when you read Chandogya Upanishad, it explains in detail. I am saying it explains in detail about the Om or about the Udgita. At least today you people must have known what is, okay, the name of the Om. The name of the Om is Udgita. I repeat. Clear? The combination of 3 syllables. Okay, the A, the U, and the Om. I said the sound of oblivion. Clear? Now, next. There is a meaning for this. See, what is the need that we have to use this, okay, symbol Om? If there is no, okay, relevance, if it has got no meaning. What does this 3 stands for? They say it as 3, or people who are familiar, okay, they say, what does this Om stands for? Many practicing Hindus, they fail to explain what actually Om stands for. Clear? Now we will understand. See, there are 3 stages for human beings. Okay, first of all, let me say you this, because I have been continuing with the Triambakam. Okay, I will say, see, this is considered as Bhur, in the sense earth. Okay, and okay, this or this, whatever it is, and this is considered as Bhuva, the atmosphere, and this, the third one, is considered as Suva, the sky. Earth, atmosphere, and the sky. Again, see, what is it? Trigunam, isn't it? Whenever you are worshipping Shiva, you say, okay, Trigunam, okay, Trigunakaram, Triyancha Triyayudam, Trijanma Papa Samharam, Eka Bilvam, Shivarpanam, and even the Bilopatra also, how many leaves it has got? 3. Understanding? Now, so this part represents the Bhumi, right? And who is, okay, on the Bhumi? It's Agni. And then Bhuva, okay, and who is here? Same, the sun god is in the form of thunder, right? Again, who is it? Rudra, right? And then see, this is what the concept of Trimurti is also, okay, arises the same way, same manner. And then here you have sky, who is the sun. Bhur Bhuva Suvaha, the Om itself, the combination of three sounds. Trayambakam, what is it? It is Trayambakam. And it has also, for example, see, I'm saying Chandogya Upanishad explains it in detail. How it explains, you see here. Beautifully it explains. Okay, Bhur. Or this part stands for, okay, Brahma. In the sense, okay, what is it? Brahma is the generator or the creator, Srushti, isn't it? Now, okay, there is Vishnu. Okay, what is Vishnu? Vishnu is the operator, Sthiti, and then you have Shiva, and who is it? He is the destroyer, isn't it? Generator, operator, and destroyer, isn't it? Om is the representation of Srushti, Sthiti, and Laya. Clear? And Om also is the representation of consciousness of the human beings. That is how we attain moksha, liberation. How you see? For example, see this, okay, part of Om explains that Jagrati, in the sense you are awake, isn't it? Or else, okay, like you are Sushupti, okay, in the sense you are in sleep mode. Between this sleep and awake, you have another mode, okay, another state which is called as dreaming state. So these are the three states generally human being is in. Whether he is sleeping, or either he is awake, or either he is dreaming. Jagrati, Sushupti, Swapna. Any of the three states, everybody of us. Okay, for example, now I am awake. Okay, you all must be in Sushupti sleep. Who knows? Or else you must be dreaming, or you must be in Jagrati. Clear? But then of all these three stages, there is one thing, okay, a kind of disturbance which is called as Maya, illusion, which is not the reality. So from these stages, you have to cross, okay, coming over, okay, bypassing these three stages, okay, cutting this illusion, you have to reach this stage, okay, which is called as Turiya, or the moksha. In the sense, simply, Om is the simplification of whole philosophy of Vedika Dharma. Okay, what is that philosophy? Liberation, everything. See, you have to liberate yourself. That is the reason, the way moksha has got relevance in Hinduism, nowhere it has got so much relevance. Moksha, you want liberation. Moksha prapti karna, isn't it? That's why you do so many things to attain moksha. And all that concept is explained here. Three stages. Either you are awake, you are asleep, or you are dreaming. But then there is some illusion in this world. You have to break this illusion and you have to reach this stage. So when you reach here, that is when you are attaining moksha. In the sense, simple, Om is the representation of all these aspects. It is the representation of Srushti, Sthiti, Laya. It is the representation of Trayambaka. What is it? Bhumi, Antariksha, Swarga, or sun, Agni, thunder. Understanding? It is the representation of the conscious states of human beings and how they can attain liberation. This is the meaning of Om, which many of us are not aware. Now coming to, okay, the saffron, isn't it? Saffron is the color, okay, or saffron is the representation of Hinduism. Hinduism is represented with the color saffron. Now, what is the saffron? How did I say it? Isn't it important thing? What is that? Vedas validate that Agni is the god, the first god. And who is Agni? He is the other form of sun god, isn't it? And whenever sun rises or sun sets, what is the color that you see? Saffron. But then this is not the point that I have to discuss now. So Agni is always represented, or Agni, the color of Agni is saffron, isn't it? And what is this? So in those days, the rishis or munis or the practitioners of Vedika Dharma, they used to stay in ashramas, right? They used to stay in ashramas. And in ashramas, always they used to, okay, have yajna. Yajna, in the sense, okay, they in this yajna, they always put fire, and this fire is called as Anantagni, in the sense the Agni that has no end. Anantagni. Why? Because always this Yajna has to keep burning. They will not put off to it. In the sense, it is simply why? Because in those days, creating Agni was very difficult. You have to struggle a lot and you have to create Agni. And if it is put off again, you have to struggle a lot in different manners, in traditional manners. And that is the reason they never used to put off the Agni. That wise, they always, that Agni was there active in the Yajna Kund. But then another important thing is, now you are going to another ashrama, okay, and there also you have to do Yajna and all rituals, isn't it? Homam, etc. So how do you do it? You have to take Agni from the previous ashrama. How do you do it? Okay, you have to carry it in some or the other way. Okay, that was the practice. So all the rishis who used to go from one ashrama to another ashrama, they used to carry Agni with them. But imagine, okay, is it possible to carry Agni with us? Sometimes it is hot, sometimes it burns, sometimes it is uncomfortable, isn't it? And that is the reason. What is the representation of Agni? The representation of Agni was a saffron. In the sense, simply what they used to do is, they used to have a cloth which used to be in saffron color. They used to tie it to the stick and they used to go to another ashrama. In the sense, okay, it symbolically means the Agni from one ashrama has been brought to another ashrama. So likewise, slowly, when rishis or munis, they started moving from one place to another place, they started, okay, carrying saffron cloth or saffron dresses they started wearing, which was the representation of carrying of Agni from one ashrama to another ashrama. Or the Agni, the representation of sun god on the earth, or Agni, the symbolic representation of all the rituals that are done in yajna or ashrama, they were carried along with them in the form of saffron colored cloth. And that is the reason slowly the saffron has become the color of Hinduism. It has become the color of Vaidika Dharma. It has become the color of Sanatana Dharma. Understanding? Likewise. Right. Next. Okay. So see, Hinduism is a huge topic. It's not a small topic. We are already, okay, have reached, we have only 10 minutes left. It's a huge, generally I discuss, this Hinduism topic at least in 4 hours. Okay, but then it is not possible to discuss this topic in 1 hour because I have, okay, wonderful, beautiful points to be discussed. For example, see, this is the mantra that I have. Then okay, then I'll be talking about swastika. Then we'll be people. There are many people who think that swastika and Hocken Cruz. What is this name? This name is not swastika, please. Many people mistake it to be swastika, but then it is called as Hocken Cruz. And what is the Hocken Cruz? It is the combination of hook plus cross. Why Hitler did not like Jews? Jews has got their origin in Christianity, right? Christian related. In a sense, they have their origins in cross. So he wanted to get rid of that origin, and that is the reason to the cross he has added hooks and he made it swastika. Later on, he claimed his origin towards the Aryans. So this is a blatant lie that people say Hitler has used swastika. Swastika has got no relation with the Hocken Cruz that was used by Hitler, right? And then likewise, okay, for example, there is this god of Kama, isn't it? Okay, Sanatana Dharma or Vaidika Dharma, they themselves in Mahanarayana Upanishad, they praise, okay, the god. For example, see, people visit Khajuraho group of temples and they feel, okay, and even Britishers say, okay, these people are beasts. They have, okay, awful, okay, pictures on their temples, etc. But then, okay, the Dharma itself praises, okay, the god Agni. And what does it say? Okay, it says like this.
कामो हि यज्ञे प्रथमो नैनं देवा आपुः पितरो न मर्त्याः ततस्त्वमसि जायान् विश्वः महान् तस्मै ते काम नमस्करोमि।
हे कामदेव, इस संसार की सृष्टि के यज्ञ में सबसे पहले आप ही उत्पन्न हुए थे। इसलिए देवों, पितरों और मनुष्यों में से किसी ने भी वह स्थान प्राप्त नहीं किया जो आपको हुआ है। आप ही सबसे बड़े और श्रेष्ठ हैं। इस पूरे विश्व में आप जैसा सर्वव्यापक और महान कोई नहीं। इसलिए हे काम, मैं आपको नमस्कार करता हूँ।
कामोकार्षित् कामः करोति नाहं करोमि कामः कर्ता नाहं कर्ता कामः कारयिता नाहं कारयिता एष ते काम कामाय स्वाहा।
So, likewise, see how beautiful it is said in Mahanarayana Upanishad. They say Kamadev is the first god of that we know, isn't it? Because without biological assemblage, there cannot be life on this earth. The same way, without sun, there cannot be life on this earth. Okay, without this biological activity, there cannot be life on this earth, and that is validated and being discussed. Okay, verily, okay, in the Vedika Dharma scriptures in detail. So likewise, there are much details to be discussed, but then let me stop the lecture here, and maybe in further classes, maybe some other sessions we will be discussing about Vedika Dharma, because I have got lot many things. Okay, the finding of what is this Shanmukha, who are Trimurtis, Three Devis, what is this symbol called as, okay, Tripundra, then this is called as who are Ashtadikpalas, Navagrahas, okay, and then Dashavataras, and then how beautifully, okay, it sums up everything. This is what I wanted to, okay, discuss, but then we have limited time. I'll just close my PPT, and I'll open my video, and now let me come to the charts, right, and see now students, okay, any one of you like is interested in asking the questions, you can ask. Okay, we have some 3-4 minutes to two, right? Nobody has typed any question here. I'll wait for a minute, and then you can ask the question, right? See, instead of okay, that doesn't help, right? I'm waiting. Maybe some 15-20 seconds. I'll wait for the question. If there is a question, that is fine. If there is no question, then we will call it a day. Okay, fine. So chat is disabled. I came to know now. Let me how to enable the chat. Administrator, please enable the chat. Please enable the chat. Because I have not stopped anybody from okay, posting the chat, but then please. Hello, admin, please open the chat, please.
Himanshu, if you're there, if you can please open the chat.
But students, it's a short time, whatever was possible for some 30-35 minutes, I have discussed about Hinduism. Okay, that rest of the things will follow later on. I doubt if Himanshu is there to enable the chat, ma'am.
I'll just call him, sir. Just a minute.
Yeah.
We do not have any other session now, so we can spare 5-10 minutes extra. Just
Yeah,
a
yeah.
minute, sir.
Yes, yes, yes.
Hello, sir. Any problem? This side, Himanshu, sir.
Yes.
Yes, Himanshu, sir, the chat is open.
Yeah, chat is open, right?
Sorry
Wonderful.
for delay. Sorry for delay, ma'am, sir.
Absolutely
No, it's
fine.
okay. That's fine. वो तो technical glitches होता रहता है. Not to worry at all. So, now I have some beautiful questions here, and let me go one by one. So, what does the word Hindu or Hind exactly mean? Aruj Gurav, a very beautiful question. Hindu is actually a geographical terminology. So, it comes from the word Sindhu. What is Sindhu? Whenever you talk about the word Indus Valley civilization, you use the word Indus. Indus is the river. So the Indus, what does Indus? Indus is nothing but the Sindhu river. Okay, whenever you see it in your mother tongue, you call it as Sindhu Ghati Sabhyata, right? So Sindhu is the name of the river. That is where this civilization okay originates. It is called. So later on, when okay, maybe the traders, the travelers, whoever they started coming here and there, okay, like passing by the river or visiting the civilization that is there on the banks of the river Sindhu. Especially these Persians and Arabs, they used to come and they do not have this pronunciation sa. So they started, okay, whenever they want to go to their place and they want to say, the people generally, people who are living on the banks of the river, they were called as Sindhus. Like, for example, see Hyderabadis, okay, Delhiites, okay, Gwaliorites. Same way, the people who were living on the banks of Sindhu river called as Sindhus. Okay, but then they do not have the word sa. Okay, they called them as Indus. Understanding? So, and likewise, it has become okay. And then the land that is there on the other side, Sindhu has become good because that is where Sindhus are staying. Sindhus in the sense Hindus are staying, and the place where Hindus are staying is called as Hindus Stan. Okay, the place of Hindus. So, whenever somebody says Hindustan, it has got nothing to do with any religion. It is purely geographical connotation that we have to understand. Like, for example, see people who are living on the banks of river Ganga. Okay, let us say, okay, you can call them as Gangaites. Clear people living on the banks of the Narmadites, isn't it? The same way it is. Okay, people living on the banks or living on the other side of, especially the Sindhu. Why? Because on the other side, okay, these people were there. Okay, it was called as Sindhu. From the Sindhu comes Hindu, and from Hindu comes Hindustan. From there, the people or the followers of the philosophy that has originated on the banks of river Sindhu, where like, or the religion, it was later on named recently in 19th century called as Hinduism, I said. But then Hinduism is very derogatory, which was originated again in the 19th century, which has got very negative represent. Then the next question is Pritu Yash Mohilesh asking, who is the founder of Hinduism? See, that is what is the problem. Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma or Vaidika Dharma is a polytheism, in the sense where you have many gods. And there is another opposite to polytheism is monotheism, where you have one god or the messengers of gods. The problem with us is we always try to compare, because hame aadat ho gaya because of English education. Okay, if there is good, then there is an opposite called as bad. If there is polytheism, then there should be monotheism. So we always compare two things, always. Okay, two contrasts. And that is where we always make mistake. For example, see Zoroastrian. If Zarathustra is the founder of Zoroastrian, we always the same way Christianity, or the Jesus Christ is the founder of Christianity, or Prophet Muhammad is the founder of Islam. Okay, the Buddha founder of Buddhism, and then Jina. Okay, Adinada or Rishabdev, the founder of the Jainism. Likewise, we always think that Hinduism also should have a founder. which is actually wrong. Why? For generations together, based on the practices that they have been doing, they have a lifestyle. That lifestyle was later on called Hinduism, but it is not actually basically a kind of religion that people let it call as religion. There is no problem, but then there cannot be a founder like all other monotheistic religions have. So we should first of all start comparing ourselves with the monotheistic religions, so we will understand the essence of Hinduism, that it doesn't have a founder. Yeah, what does the word Hindu exactly means? I have answered. Now, sir, is Sanskrit is derived from Tamil? See, Sanskrit is one of the ancient languages, and Tamil is also one of the ancient languages. Sanskrit, Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam, Odia, all these languages, classical languages, they have developed simultaneously together. It's not that one predates the other one. For example, see, there is influence of Sanskrit on Telugu, Tamil, influence of Tamil on Sanskrit, influence of Sanskrit, Tamil on Telugu, influence of Sanskrit, Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, or influence of Kannada, Sanskrit, Tamil on Telugu, and vice versa. So every language, some or the other way, has influenced the other language, and there cannot be one superior language and one inferior language. If it is a language, and every language is superior. That is one thing. And how, for example, see, I do not know, like if Tamilians are there here, you have to understand, because that is a big discussion. In Tamil, you do not have kakha gagha the way you have the sounds in Sanskrit. First of all, you understand this. Sanskrit do not have a script, isn't it? We write it in Devanagari script. Sanskrit has the sound, and that is the beauty. So it was it has been imbibed into all other languages. Now Tamil do not have kakha gagga. Only one letter you have ka, which is pronounced based on the situation. But then Sanskrit has kakha gagha, the sounds. For example, see Kumar. When you write Kumar, Kumar in Tamil, right? But then if a person who knows to read Tamil letters but do not know Tamil properly, he may pronounce it as Gumar. Why? Ka and Ga looks similar in writing, Tamil script. But then where that this sound, it should be pronounced as only Kumar, not Gumar comes from, it comes from Sanskrit. There is this Sanskrit grammar, Tamil grammar called as Tolkapiyam. The first, the Sanskrit Tamil grammar, Tolkapiyar, isn't it? The Tolkapiyam itself says this thing, that the pronunciation ka, ka, ga, ga itself is derived from the Sanskrit. In the sense, both, the other ways also. So Tamil, a kind of Sanskrit, they attribute each other. That is the important thing. There is nothing called superior, a thing, right? Isn't it? And Agastya, who is Agastya? The great Rishi Agastya, isn't it? He is the grandson of Brahma, isn't it? And Agastya has got two favorite students, and out of two, one favorite student is Tolkapiyar. And who is Tolkapiyar? Tolkapiyar is the one who has written Tamil grammar, isn't it? And predates Tamil grammar, Tolkapiyam book is the Agatyam, isn't it? Again the Tamil grammar. Who is the Agastya? And who is Agastya? The great devotee of Lord Shiva, isn't it? Understanding. So you cannot just look them different. Everything is similar, same, and one, and in the same context, right? Sir, is there any difference between Hinduism and Bhaktism? See again, Bhakti is a small part of every philosophy that exists. Every philosophy. Bhakti is part of Bauddha Dharma, Bhakti is part of Jaina Dharma, Bhakti is part of Vaidika Dharma. So Bhakti can be everywhere, isn't it? It's not, you do not find a kind of difference. So I said, what does the word Hinduism means? I have explained it very in a detailed manner. Sir, why do few people in India have the problem with the word Hindutva? They have the problem because we have left narrative in India. What is that left narrative? Left narrative has always, they have not liked the orthodox form of nationalism in India. For example, see, when a mother becomes, when a lady becomes mother, matru. What do you call mother? Matru. And what do you call motherhood? Matrutva. Isn't it? So when you are a Hindu, what do you call that Hinduhood? Hinduhood is called as Hindutva. Okay, in sense, okay, you cannot simply say if you are calling Hindutva as a wrong reference of Hinduism, then you should also call Matrutva as wrong connotation. Why? Because it is the language actually. The both Hindutva and Matrutva, in the sense, when somebody is in the Hinduhood, then he is called as Hindutva. It is called as Hindutva. When a woman is in motherhood, then it is called as Matrutva. Isn't it? And see, there is always a fight between the right wing and the left wing, right narrative and the left narrative. So they always fight. At the end of the day, isn't it? Their wrong connotations and their efforts to malign something that is there should not be the case, because we cannot keep maligning everything that do not match with our philosophy. So for example, Hindutva is one such concept. Because it doesn't match with you, okay, you cannot bring extremism and attach it to Hindutva and say Hindutva is bad. It is not that thing that people are thinking. Hindutva is a pure Sanskrit word which means Hinduness, isn't it? Now see, now somebody, for example, if I am saying I am a Hindutva person and I am killing somebody, then people say this fellow is Hindutva and he killed a person. See, I should be blamed. Why? Because I am a rogue, isn't it? For that, Hindutva should not be blamed, because Hindutva has got nothing to do. It is a terminology that originates from Sanskrit. Understanding? The same way. Clear? Sir,
So
is
maybe-
all ism words negative? Yes, all ism words are negative. Okay. And then, okay, the origin of suffix, okay, ism itself is a negative origin. Okay, that is how it has originated. But later on, people have used it. But then I always suggest you should not use it. Racism, casteism, these are all negative okay aspects. So you can use them okay very well. But then Sikhism, okay, you cannot use ism in Sikh. Why? Because it is not an orthodox negative concept. Sikh itself is a wonderful concept. That is what all I mean, right? Now, sir, can you explain me the meaning of 7 meters? See, what are 7 meters? I said, okay, Anupshtup, Jagati, Pankti, okay, Trishtup, Gayatri, then, okay, all these, okay, words, meters that are there. Meters in the sense, for example, see, whenever you are writing a poetry or a poem, you have a style. For example, you remember there is this style of writing poetry called as haikus. In sense, 2-line stanza. For example, Kabir ka doha, Tulsi ka doha, you see, you find a lot of rhyming in it, isn't it? Rahiman daga prem ka mat todo chetkai tute se firna mile gant pad jai. Isn't it? It matches with the rhyming that is there in the first line to the second line. Isn't it? This style of rhythm that is there is called as chandas, prosody in Sanskrit grammar. So how many kinds are there? 7 kinds are there. Out of that, one major kind is, or the important kind is Gayatri. And that was used to, okay, recite the mantra, okay, of Aditya, the sun god. Clear?
So can we please interrupt? We have like, it's like we have overrun time actually.
Yes. So we will stop here with the questions. Okay, if they have, they will ask me later on in some other sessions, or they can follow me on social media. I should not say people think that I am asking them to follow me. They can
Yes.
follow me somewhere and they can ask me questions there. I'll reply them.
Yes, sir. So we have had God knows how many questions in the chat box for you. Though it is because of time, it is difficult to answer.
Yeah.
And you must be loving it because sir loves discussions. And on this topic, particularly, he loves discussions. So students, you can contact him through one or the other social media ways. Sir will, I'm assured that sir will definitely be answering, reverting back every single of you. Sir, am I right in saying this now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, students. Students, please, one announcement. Listen properly. For 3 p.m. lecture, I have mentioned Zoom ID in the chat box. अब वो chat box में अगर miss हो गया होगा तो I'll re-mention it in the WhatsApp group that you people have of MBA and BBA. Please follow that ID for 3 p.m. lecture. The one mentioned in the timetable shared is not the one that we'll follow. The one that will be followed is the one which is shared in the chat, and I'll be sharing it